Seriously. It feels like everywhere you turn these days, AI is taking over the headlines.
It's
It's
true.
like, it's not just sci-fi anymore, is it? AI is already changing how things work in so many fields. And I bet if you're listening to this, you're probably an engineer or a programmer yourself.
Most likely.
And you're probably thinking, okay, so what does this mean for me?
For sure.
Like, what's going to happen to the work we do day to day?
Exactly. And that is precisely what we're going to dig into today. We're taking a deep dive into how AI is going to affect technical professionals, engineers, programmers, the whole lot. And you know what? We've got a great guide for this little journey. Larry Dean, you might know him from his blog, The Engineer's Line.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing about Larry is, well, he's seen these massive tech shifts happen firsthand.
He has. Yeah.
I mean, think about it. He started out using slide rules like way back in the day, and now he's living in a world of AI. And, he actually wrote a book about some of his early experiences.
An engineer's tale. Right.
That's the one. It really gives you this amazing perspective on how we got to where we are today. So what we're going to try to do today is understand how AI is changing things up for engineers and programmers. Like, what are the real challenges and equally important, the new opportunities that are coming up? And you know what? We're going to do all this by looking at Larry Dean's own journey, his own experiences, and the things he's been saying on his blog.
Perfect.
So why don't we start by thinking about what engineers have already gone through? Like Larry himself.
Yeah. Okay.
In his book, he actually tells this, well, pretty funny story about his first attempt at computer programming.
Oh, yeah.
It was with Fortran a fourth, and let's just say it wasn't exactly love at first sight. He just barely passed the class. It kind of reminds you, even the most experienced people out there, they also hit these moments where they got to really learn something new, sometimes the hard way.
Yeah, yeah. And, if you really think about it, the way engineers have used different tools over time is a pretty fascinating story, right?
Absolutely.
Larry actually goes through it in his book.
Hmm.
He starts with the super basic stuff, like just counting on your fingers and toes.
Sure.
Then he talks about the abacus, then the slide rule, which, is a big deal for him.
Oh, yeah.
Then calculators, then computers, and now,
AI.
boom, AI, exactly.
Next frontier.
It's like this constant search for better, faster ways to solve these tough problems.
Definitely. And what's really cool is the way Larry talks about the slide rule. You can tell there's almost this fondness there,
Yeah.
Like it was his trusty sidekick back in college, a symbol of, engineering. He even talks about how he was kind of hesitant about these fancy calculators at first. He found that reversed Polish notation thing on those Hewlett-Packard calculators a bit confusing.
Yeah, yeah.
But it shows you we get attached to the tools we use, and it's totally human to be a bit skeptical about new stuff, even if it's supposed to be better.
Absolutely. Yeah. But here's the thing, and Larry really makes this point. Even though there's that learning curve, and maybe some people push back at first, each big tech change from those clunky old mainframes to the smartphones we've got now, they've actually made engineers more creative and productive.
They have.
That's something to think about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because with AI, it's not about replacing engineers. It's about giving them totally new ways to do things.
That's exactly what we're talking about. And this leads us right to AI, this next big frontier. And you know what? Larry's not just talking about AI. He's actually working with it directly.
Oh, yeah. What's he up to?
Well, he's got this AI-generated podcast, also called The Deep Dive. You can check it out on his site, engineer.com. He even gave his AI hosts names, Jake and Carrie, after his niece and nephew. I mean, how cool is that?
That is really cool. So he's getting right in there and experimenting.
Exactly, which gives him this really grounded perspective. He's even saying that AI could actually do better than our current tech in some really complicated stuff.
Like what?
Things like running a whole oil refinery, figuring out all that intricate planning and scheduling. It's amazing. And when you think about Larry's background, him being an engineer and all, that statement carries some weight. It makes you realize just how much AI could disrupt all these established technical fields.
It really does.
But, with this huge potential comes what Larry calls the dual threat of AI.
Uh-oh. What's that?
On one hand, it's this incredible tool that can handle super complex stuff.
Right.
But on the other hand, and this is important for all you programmers and engineers out there, there's this possibility that AI could actually replace human professionals.
Oh, wow.
Especially for tasks that have very clear rules and steps.
And honestly, a lot of what we do in these fields is like that.
Exactly. And Larry doesn't shy away from what's already happening. He talks about how AI is already being used to write code. And get this, it's often faster and makes fewer mistakes than humans.
Whoa.
This isn't some far-off thing. It's happening now. So if you're a programmer, you're probably seeing this firsthand or hearing about it, and you've got to be wondering what's
For
next.
sure.
But here's where Larry's perspective gets really interesting, and I think, in the end, pretty encouraging.
Okay, I'm listening.
He's not saying we should fight AI. He's saying we should work with it, we should create new things with it, and we should adapt.
Like we've adapted to other big changes in the past.
Precisely. And he highlights this crucial limitation of AI, at least for now. It's based on stuff we already know. It can analyze and put things together, but it doesn't really have imagination.
It can't come up with something totally new.
Right, that's still a human thing.
That makes sense.
Larry sees AI as this powerful tool that can help us do things we can barely even imagine right now, but it needs humans to point it in the right direction, to give it that initial spark.
So AI can optimize and process tons of data.
Absolutely.
But that really original idea, the one that's never been thought of before, that still comes from us.
Absolutely. And to really use this powerful tool, Larry talks about how hard it's been for us to adopt and trust these new forms of what he calls artificial smarts. He reminds us that pretty much every big tech change in history has been met with, people doubting it, being hesitant.
That's so true.
But the people who really benefited were the ones who embraced the new stuff, learned how to use it.
I love that story he tells about his colleague who framed his slide rule. He put a sign on it that said, "In case of emergency break glass."
Oh, yeah, that's classic.
It's like this perfect example of how we hold on to old tech, even when there's something so much better available. And the fact that the glass never got broken, well, that tells me everything. Eventually we come around, we adapt. It might take some time, we might grumble a bit, but we get there. It's funny, but it's also really insightful.
It really is. And it shows that even though change can be kind of scary, the good stuff that comes from embracing these new tools often outweighs our fears. And speaking of the future, Larry throws in this really cool fun fact that makes you think.
Okay, lay it on me.
He talks about Elon Musk's prediction that the first humanoid on Mars, probably that Tesla Optimus robot, aiming for before the end of 2026.
Wow, that's coming up fast.
It is. And Larry's point is it'll probably have an AI brain.
Whoa. Okay, so
Whether that prediction comes true or not, the idea itself is huge, right?
it is, yeah.
It means AI could be so much more than just lines of code on our computers.
Right.
It could be a way for us to do things, go places we never thought possible.
Man, that really puts things in perspective.
It does.
So to recap what we've learned from Larry Dane, it seems like the history of tech and engineering is all about constant change, right? People resist it at first, but it always leads to new possibilities. And AI, well, that's the next chapter in this story. It's going to change the jobs we have, create new ones we haven't even thought of yet.
Exactly. AI is powerful, but it could also really shake things up. But here's the main takeaway from Larry, and I think this is crucial. We should be proactive. Engineers, programmers, we need to use AI to push boundaries.
And that way, we're not just reacting to AI, we're shaping it.
Exactly. And remember that human spark, that creativity we have, that's still what's going to make all the difference.
So when we think about all of this, it really makes you wonder, what amazing new fields, what incredible new things are we going to create as humans and AI work more and more together?
I know.
And what about AI itself? How are we going to guide it? How are we going to help it evolve in ways we can't even imagine right now?
Huge questions.
Larry Dane has definitely given us a lot to think about today.